Welcome back to a new episode where we're tackling a listener question. Uh, what's the deal with this whole tariff strategy in President Trump's second term?
Yeah, it's a question we're hearing a lot these days. America First is back with a vengeance, and tariffs are a big part of that.
Right. So for those who need a refresher, can
hmm
you quickly explain what tariffs are and why they're suddenly so important right now?
Sure. In the simplest terms, a tariff is like a tax on something imported from another country. Like, if a car is made overseas and imported to the U.S., a tariff makes that car more expensive for buyers here. The idea is that this protects industries in the U.S. from foreign competition.
Okay, so President Trump is bringing them back as part of his America First agenda.
Exactly. He sees them as a way to encourage people to buy American-made products and bring back manufacturing jobs to the U.S.
You mentioned foreign competition. Is there a specific country or industry he's targeting?
Well, China is definitely a focus. He's been very critical of their trade practices and has already imposed tariffs on, like, billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods. We're already seeing companies in both countries and consumers feeling the effects of that.
Yeah. It sounds like he's using tariffs as a tool to renegotiate trade deals, not just with China, but with other countries as well.
Exactly. He's looking to renegotiate existing agreements like the one we have with Mexico and Canada, and he's even suggested using tariffs as leverage in discussions with allies like the EU and Japan. He really wants to make sure American businesses have advantageous terms in these trade deals.
It seems like a pretty aggressive approach. What are some of the potential benefits he sees in all of this?
Well, from his perspective, tariffs are a way to protect American jobs and industries, particularly in manufacturing. The thinking is that by making imported goods more expensive, American-made products will become more appealing, leading to more jobs and growth here at home.
That makes sense. But using tariffs like this must come with some risks, too. What are some concerns experts have?
Yeah, there are definitely concerns. One of the biggest is that these tariffs could lead to increased prices for, well, everyday items. If a tariff is added to everything from clothes to electronics, those costs are often passed along to the consumer.
So consumers might end up paying more for the things they need.
That's right. That's the worry. Another risk is the possibility of retaliation. If the U.S. imposes tariffs on goods from other countries, those countries could retaliate with their own tariffs on American products. And this could hurt American companies that rely on selling their goods overseas.
So it's a delicate balance. He's trying to protect American industries, but he also doesn't want to spark a trade war that could damage the economy in the long run.
Exactly. And there's also the question of whether tariffs will actually achieve what they're intended to do. Will they really bring back manufacturing jobs to the U.S. in a significant way, or will they just increase costs for consumers without providing any real benefit? It's hard to say.
So there's a lot of uncertainty about how this will all play out. It sounds like President Trump has a specific plan for all of this. It's not just about imposing tariffs randomly, is it?
No, not at all. He's talked about a comprehensive strategy. He's discussed something called a universal baseline tariff, which would basically be a 10% tax on all goods imported into the U.S.
10% tax on everything. That seems like a big change.
It is. And in addition to that, he wants to use targeted tariffs on specific goods and countries. China is a primary target, as we've discussed, but he's also focused on industries like steel, aluminum, and technology manufacturing. The goal is to shield those industries from what he sees as unfair competition from overseas. He views it as like leveling the playing field, right? He wants to make sure American businesses have a fighting chance in the global market. And he's not afraid to use tariffs to do that. He's not just waiting for Congress to make things happen.
So he's taking things into his own hands.
Well, in a way, yeah. He's planning to use his executive authority to implement some of these tariffs.
Does he actually have the power to do that all on his own?
He does. There are actually a couple of ways he can go about it. One is through something called Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, which allows him to put tariffs on imports that he believes pose a threat to national security. Another tool he can use is Section 301 of the Trade Act, which lets him address what he sees as unfair trade practices by other countries.
This is causing some tension with lawmakers, though, right? They feel like he's kind of sidelining them.
Yeah, definitely. There's been some pushback from Congress. They argue that these actions should be subject to more oversight and debate.
We've talked about the potential benefits and risks of this approach, but what about the money generated from these tariffs? Where does all that go?
Right. That's a good question. President Trump has said that he wants to use that revenue to support programs that bolster American manufacturing and encourage innovation. Basically, the idea is to use those funds to help us make things here in the U.S. and rely less on imports.
So it's not just about, penalizing other countries. He's trying to use that revenue to revitalize American industries.
Exactly. It's about making the U.S. economy more self-sufficient, less dependent on global trade.
It's a pretty ambitious vision, but it definitely has its challenges. Trying to change the whole system of global trade and shift those supply chains, that's a pretty tall order.
Oh, for sure. It's incredibly complex. There are so many moving parts, so many factors at play. It remains to be seen whether it's really possible. But one thing is clear. President Trump is determined to give it a shot.
So for our listeners who are trying to wrap their heads around all of this, what's the takeaway here? How should they be thinking about this issue?
The key thing to remember is that this tariff strategy is a big gamble. There are potentially major consequences for the U.S. economy, not to mention our relationships with other countries. It's a complicated situation, and people have really strong opinions on both sides.
Right. Some believe these tariffs are absolutely necessary to protect American jobs and ensure that global trade is fair. Others are worried that it'll all backfire and lead to higher prices, trade wars, and instability in the economy.
Exactly. It's crucial to remember that there are many different perspectives on this issue. Some industries and businesses will likely benefit from these tariffs, while others could end up being hurt.
So the impact of these tariffs could be felt in very different ways depending on, the specific industry, the company, even down to the individual consumer.
That's right. I think the most important thing is to stay informed and really think critically about all the information that's out there. There's a lot of noise, a lot of different opinions and predictions flying around. Try to stick to the facts, consider different viewpoints, and then come to your own conclusions.
Yeah, I think that's really important advice. It's so easy to, get caught up in the headlines and all the heated opinions out there.
Right.
Taking a step back and just trying to look at the big picture, I think that's key.
Absolutely. And it's also important to keep in mind that, the story is still developing. The true impact of this tariff strategy, we won't know for a while. So it's something we'll all be watching closely.
Yeah, for sure. So as we wrap up here, is there one key thing you'd want our listeners to keep in mind as they follow this story?
I'd say the most important thing is to stay informed. Really understand the potential consequences of these policies. These are decisions about tariffs, about trade. They can have a real impact on our lives, whether it's, the prices we pay for things or even the job market.
So understanding what's at stake here, that's really important.
Absolutely. We all need to stay informed, stay engaged, because this really affects all of us.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to break all this down for us. It's been really helpful to get your perspective on this.
Happy to do it. It's been a great discussion.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into President Trump's tariff strategy. We hope this has given you a clearer understanding of this very complex issue. We'll be back next time with another interesting topic. Until then, stay curious.